Hi, welcome along. It is the 20th of December 2025, so we're just coming up to Christmas. I'm Jon Doe. I've done lots of records production in dance music, basically, and somebody requested that I did a D Records playlist. So I'm going to talk a bit about some of these records, and how this started was I'd left Alpha Magic. I'd done a lot of records with Chocky on Chocky's tunes. The first 9 Mohawks, apart from like number 5, which I think is an Oz and Christian record. Done lots of the Hard Tracks records, and then under various names did other projects. So Toast Records, Chunk with Billy Bunter, UK Hard also with Billy Bunter, stuff on Honey Pot, which is Billy Bunter's label, and then D Records happened. And what this was that at the turn of the century, or just before, so the end of 1999, the hardcore room in Slammin' Vinyl and various other things would have some hard house people playing in it, because hardcore at the time really didn't have enough records to justify a night of hardcore. You couldn't have played all new records, whereas in most scenes which are active, you've got a choice of what records you can play, and if another DJ plays all your records, you can play something else. I remember playing after DJ Demand at Slammin' Vinyl as one of these guests in 2000, and he finished with Shooting Star on +8, which was a challenge to start with a slow trance record, but that's one of my best sets ever, so with ribs on it. Anyway, D Records started to... Billy Bunter was going to play at one of these things, and he said, "Have you got anything?" So I made a couple of tracks which were like 150 BPM, because the hard house was a bit slower, 145 BPM, so that he could play these things in his set, and that was D1. The series, when that record actually came out, because he had it on a dub plate, it went mad and did 2,000 in its first week, and that was from an independent distributor called Infectious Distribution. Infectious Distribution was a distribution company, and they had a shop which was called Kinetic. So not Kinetic, Kinetic with an EC at the end. And that was just near where Regent Street and Oxford Street meet, and you went along and went down Little Portland Street and into a little basement. But they could do 600 of a good release in the shop. And that was crazy. Me and Billy Bunter were working out the back with people like UFO, making hard dance, hard trance, hard house, and techno-y sort of records. And we could take like a quarter of an hour break, and you could come out and see what people were picking. You could see what people were being loaded up with on their sort of shopping carts, I suppose you'd call them. You get a big stack of records and you go through them, and you could actually see a D record coming up and see someone's reaction to it and putting it in a no pile or a yes pile. And he could even speak to them and say, "Hey, why did you like this?" and stuff. So it's really helpful feedback. People used to come in the shop like BK and Ed Real. Ed Real at the time was the driving force behind Nucleus. Okie dokie. So I'm going to start here on Ride My Wave. This is quite recent, and the reason I'm playing it is because I have done a lot of actual hard house records, and the idea with D Records was the A-sides were kind of hard trance, and the B-sides were in this sort of triangle I've talked about before, where there's trance and hard house and techno, and you sort of mix between the two. But the A-side was hard trance, the B-side, in the UK sense of it, and the B-side was sort of more techno-y stuff. But I also did some hard house, but I never got the bookings for direct sort of hard house thing because of my trance connotations, most notably with Cheeky Little Monkey, which is a Bournemouth-based rave, so sort of local to that. But I wouldn't get booked there because I'm not into hard house. Here's a hard house track by me. So what I've done with this playlist is I've just put the first 7 in order. A bit of a challenge to listen to because they're all like 6, 7 and 8 minutes long, so there's loads of beats at the beginning and stuff like that, but yeah, so I've chucked in loads of these other things which are like this, like hard house. And then there were records in between when the main run of records came out within, like, I don't know, by 2004, 2003, they're mostly... Are they done by 2002? I don't know. Maybe. I'll have to look that up on Discogs. So the main run of vinyl releases, D1 to D7, were all done in quite a short space of time. And then spread out from that, the digital releases which came afterwards. 8 is missing, but I have found it fairly recently on an Apple Mac. I managed to get an Apple Mac hard drive extracted using a program, and that had D8 on there, which I sort of forgot about. Okay, let's go on to electro. Kutski got the opportunity to play a record on Pete Tong's show, and this is what he played, and he said, can I play this at -6? So he had to play this at -6 because otherwise Pete Tong wouldn't have let it on his show. And Pete Tong described Kutski's music as crazy. This is like very far from crazy. I wonder how flagged up this will get on YouTube for infringing myself. So yeah, there's loads of interesting bits on here. Come and have a click around. I'm going to highlight just two more. One of them is this, Back to the Old School. I love playing this out when I get the chance to play this sort of music, which I did a lot this year in 2025. Just going to skip on here. Played this at Ministry of Sound when I was back to back with Billy Bunter, and this tune went down really well. I chopped up the footage I have and Billy Bunter had, and Matt Colbrooks, and sent him some clips, so he hasn't put those out. I'll use them soon at some point. Now, what I like about this record is it's doing this, then a riff comes in, and then the bass underneath it changes and has acid over the top to make it sound like it's an acid bass, which I like a lot. So that's the riff. Here comes the bass. Let's fast forward a bit. Hopefully it happens quite soon. So that does some stuff. And then I think Spanish Guitar and Journey into Life are on the same kind of tip. I'm going to play Spanish Guitar. I got a YouTube clip of a guy saying his Spanish guitar was a bit broke now. Where's the good bit? This, of course, doesn't have any Spanish guitar in it at all. I finally got one of these basses to work, which I'd been trying to do for a while in this record. Where's this? Where's the guy? So it has distorted kicks in the build-up. People do that now. The only thing I would do differently now is I'd write a sub in to do the lowest sub notes. I'd leave that sound of the burp burp type bass in over the top, but I'd keep a sub dedicated to doing that, or maybe have a longer kick and then a sub written in, just to make the bass a bit deeper. If you listen to Dimension, there's a tune called Guardian Angel, but there are many others that he's done which all use the same beat basically, and he sounds like he's putting offbeat basses in when actually he's holding a held sine wave underneath everything, which only avoids the kick. So it's the kick plays, sine wave plays, kick plays, the sine wave plays. But on top of that, you think that it's kick, offbeat, snare, offbeat, offbeat, kick, snare, offbeat. But actually there's a bass just holding and just avoiding the kicks. And that's the kind of thing I think you'd take across to this type of music, where you'd keep a sub going, apart from when the kick's playing, and then you'd make a sound of a sort of bass. So this one has a whop, whop, whop bass. You'd keep that next octave, which you actually hear, in there, but delete the low octave. At the moment I do that using Soothe 2, so if I have a sub running, I send it at extremely high level into the sound sort of bass, and then turn up Soothe 2 to the absolute max and just delete that whole octave. Somebody will find that interesting or useful. I will catch you another time, yeah, hope you have a great weekend, and if I don't see you before Christmas, have a great Christmas. And if you're watching this in like February 2026 or 2029, can you just put in there the month and the year, just to say when you're listening and how irrelevant Christmas is to you on this occasion. Right, cool, bye.